Welcome to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, where you can hear your favorite performers talk about how they got started, their careers, and everything in between. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Spotify at Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha, and on my main Broadway account at Broadway_Corner on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Broadway Corner with Ashley Ha. I am so happy you are here, and today we are stepping behind the curtain to chat with a Broadway producer. He's the author of Theater Kid, a Broadway memoir, and has produced some of the most impactful shows in recent Broadway history. It is none other than Jeffrey Seller. Hi Jeffrey, how are you today?
Ashley, how nice to hear that introduction. I am terrific and happy to be here with you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so exciting that you have this new book coming out. But before we get to all of that, of course, I'll introduce you a little bit and really talk about all the shows that you've helped been such a, an instrumental part of. So Jeffrey Seller is one of the most successful American producers of our time. He produced the Tony Award winning musicals Rent, Avenue Q, In the Heights, and Hamilton. His shows have garnered 22 Tony Awards, including 4 for Best Musical, and his Broadway productions and tours have grossed over 4.6 billion and reached more than 43 million attendees. Jeffrey is the only producer to have mounted 2 Pulitzer Prize winning musicals, Hamilton and Rent, and he also revolutionized theater accessibility with the $20 ticket lottery for Rent, making theater accessible for all. So clearly a lot to chat about. You've had such an illustrious career and have done so much incredible work. But before we get to questions, I just have to say that it is such an honor to get to chat with you. You're honestly one of the reasons that I am who I am. Discovering Hamilton was the very start of like my love for theater. I'd always kind of been aware of it, but it never jump started until the moment I started listening and saw Hamilton. It was my first Broadway show. It is the show I've seen more than any other show live. I've seen it Broadway tours. I even got to see it in London. It's just kind of changed pretty much the entire trajectory of my life. So to be sitting here, right now talking to you pretty much because of the work that you do is such an honor. So thank you so much.
With pleasure.
Thank you. And, for to start us off, this is a question that I ask all of my guests. Can you just talk about your background, kind of where you grew up, where you went to school, and how you discovered theater?
I grew up in Oak Park, Michigan, which is one of the first suburbs just north of Detroit. In fact, many people may have seen Eminem's movie called 8 Mile, and 8 Mile is the demarcation line, and I lived between 8 and 9 Mile, right off of Coolidge in Oak Park, Michigan. And I am Jewish, and we Jews have a play we do every year that's kind of the equivalent of the Christian nativity play that may happen at Christmas. And for us, it's the story of Queen Esther on the holiday of Purim. And um, our temple would do a musical on Queen Esther every year. And I remember being in third grade and loving it and wondering, how do those kids memorize all those lines? And in fourth grade, I said to my dad, "Can I go audition?" When they announced auditions, and I auditioned, and I got in. And that year, they were juxtaposing the story of South Pacific to the story of Queen Esther, and then they were adding in some songs from HMS Pinafore. So I like to say that my first musical was a mishmash of Rodgers and Hammerstein, Gilbert and Sullivan, and the Old Testament, which we know to be a very fervent source for musicals.
hmm Yeah, and just can you talk about a little bit, like maybe if it when it hit you that you wanted to be a producer?
Yeah, well, so after the Purim play, which was, of course, one performance on a Sunday morning in March, um, I immediately wrote a play. I wrote a play called Adventureland in the fourth grade about my 2 best friends, Bruce and Jay, and I going to a faraway place and being challenged by all these life-threatening obstacles and then being saved and coming home. And then in fifth grade, we did a workshop.
Mm.
And then by seventh grade, I started doing community theater. And I loved being in plays and I loved my youth theater. And I have this very specific memory of being in a play when I was in eighth grade, and it was called The Adventures of Popcorn Pete. And I had a good time. It was fun to be in it. But I had two feelings. One, it's a silly title. And two, it's not very good. And three, the audiences were pretty small. And
Mm.
I thought, can we do better? And I said, who picks the play? And they said, well, that's the play reading committee. And I said, well, then I want to be on the play reading committee. And then I was on the play reading committee, and then I was the president of the organization. And as soon as I asked who picks the play, I was taking the first step toward becoming a producer.
Mm.
Because indeed, of all of our many um, actions as producer, the first and biggest action we take is deciding what to do.
Hmm.
And so that begins in eighth grade. But of course, I continue to be in plays through high school. And I produce plays in my high school. And then I start directing and producing theater at college at the University of Michigan. And then I get a job in New York working for the producers Barry and Fran Weissler, being a booking agent, sending around the national tours of all their shows, shows like Cabaret starring Joel Grey and Fiddler on the Roof starring Topol. And then eventually, of course, I meet Jonathan Larson, which changes the course of my life
Yes.
and
Like,
many other lives as well.
yes, definitely a lot of people's lives. But before we get to maybe all about rent and all that stuff, like I feel like so many people they dream, they talk about writing a book, but everyone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna write a book," and then it maybe never even happens. But you obviously you did it. You followed through, and you've now you're gonna release this book, which is gonna touch so many lives. Why this book now?
I made it for you. And I'm not being facetious, Ashley.
Hmm.
I made it for all of the young theater kids. I made it for anybody who often feels out,
Hmm.
because I often felt out. And many of us theater kids at different moments of our life felt out.
Hmm.
And I thought that my experience might provide comfort and relatability to a lot of young people.
Hmm.
And of course, I am a gay man. I am a Jewish gay man. I am an adopted Jewish gay man. So I fit into a lot of specific categories, but it is only through the specificity of my story that I think I can help others go, hey, maybe it's going to be okay. Because I feel lonely too. I feel outside too. I feel like I'm never going to be successful too.
Hmm. Yeah, I
I feel
completely get that.
scared. I feel scared to come out of the closet.
Hmm. Yeah, that's just honestly very touching that, you're looking out for the new generation that's going to be coming in who loves theater pretty much with all our heart. I mean, I am pursuing it in college, which is craziness. And sometimes, you question yourself. You're like, what am I even doing when you're in a 9 a.m. like voice class and you're just like, what is happening? But it's like it's to know that you're not alone and that in within the specificity I think of your book is going to become more universality because I think that's always what I found has been the most powerful thing when it comes to different shows is really just when we really dial into our own experiences we realize that we're not so different from other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, many of us, I'm sure you and all of your fellow students and theater lovers are asking, how am I ever going to do this?
Hmm.
This musical theater thing. And I was asking it too. So maybe my story helps others create their own story.
Hmm. I love that so much. Yeah, thank
That really is the reason for this book.
you. Hmm.
But the personal reason is, I started writing about myself in the fourth grade with that first play. And I think that as a kid who grew up in Oak Park, Michigan, who grew up in the poor neighborhood, who was both Jewish and poor, which is not allowed. And I mean that as, Jewish people are supposed to be all upward rising. And our family was poor. We were on welfare.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ashamed. I was ashamed of being poor. I was ashamed of not being masculine enough.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like an outsider because I was adopted. And I needed to write this book to make sense of all of those feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think, writing and really putting your thoughts down on a page is always like a cathartic experience. So,
Yeah.
I can really see how, you healing yourself can also heal others that will read this. And you've done, I mean, so many new works, and, you've produced all these very, very, very original shows. And obviously at the beginning of these shows' life, they're maybe not so polished. So like what is the thing or like something that you just catches your eye, the aspect of one show that allows you to see the potential instead of what it is at that moment?
Um, I am always looking to be surprised.
Mm,
I am always looking to have my ear pricked in a new way. Like I've never heard it sound like that before. And certainly the first time I ever heard um, Mimi and Roger
mm-hmm,
sing Light My Candle, I went, oh my God, I've never heard a sound like that before on Broadway.
mm-hmm,
The first time I heard Lynn sing Lights Up on Washington Heights at the break of day, and then this beautiful Broadway chorus joined him singing in the Heights, I went, I've never heard a sound like that before. So I want to be stimulated in a whole new way. And I want to be emotionally, viscerally moved.
mm-hmm.
I want to have a physical experience, not just an intellectual experience.
Mm. Yeah, I think the best, theater really does make us, want to jump out of our seat and like join them pretty much on the stage. I know I feel that for so many of the shows that you've produced, but it's just the power of theater, I think is what, I always try to really just think about is how transformative each show, even just a song can be to really just change your perspective on maybe just what you're thinking. But we all know that you obviously were an instrumental part in the groundbreaking musical that is Rent. But I mean, you at the beginning, I was looking through your book, and you were the one who gave Jonathan Larson your opinion very early on, just being like, maybe this isn't quite, what are you trying to say exactly? And so that he could make the changes that result in, the show that we know today. I mean, what was that like having to just really be honest with him?
One of the most sensitive um, activities of a producer is to criticize the work of an author. To know first, when do I offer it?
Mm,
Then, how do I offer it? And how much do I give? How much can an author take in?
mm,
And usually I say, wait until they ask. Don't just run over to an author and start telling them what's wrong with their play or their musical. Wait,
mm,
be patient. Don't overspeak. But when they ask, you've got to go. And that
mm,
was a scary moment for me because I was young. I was like, I was not yet 30 years old, but I had opinions.
mm,
I was smart. You're smart. You're 19 years old.
mm,
And um, I, so when Jonathan said, what did you think? I had to explain. And of course, like all of us, you start with compliments. You know, being a producer is almost like being a parent.
Yeah, I could
The
see that.
shows are my kids. So I
Hmm.
started with compliments. And then I explained, I said, I don't know what you're trying to achieve because I can't glean any plot. I can't find the beginning, middle, and an end. And there's not one character whose story I can track.
Hmm.
Are you trying to write a collage of life in the East Village, or are you trying to write a musical with a beginning and a middle and an end? And he said, of course, I'm trying to write a musical with a beginning and a middle and an end. I said, well, then you have to go do that because
Mm-hmm.
that's not what you have.
Mm-hmm.
That was enough.
Yeah. And to see like the progression throughout the years, to see what it was and then what it became, like when it finally hit, previews and Broadway and all that moment, I mean, it was such an electric time. What is it like to see a show go from one thing to the next? Because I feel like you're maybe one of the only people who can say that they were really there from the start.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the first ever reading in 1993 that was not so promising, in which two people I brought, one left at intermission and the other person, excuse me, said when it was over, well, that's never going to work. He's a talented guy, but he should just try something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed in the idea. I thought taking La Boheme and putting it in the East Village and giving Mimi AIDS instead of tuberculosis was inspired. And I was like, go do that. But it's not coming through yet. So
Mm-hmm.
try again. No, just keep going. And so much of my job is to just say, keep going. And sometimes it's to not criticize that day, to say, okay, keep going.
Yeah. No, I think that's also like as an artist, you want to hear someone who's like supporting you, who will see you at your low moments and then know that there will be better times ahead. And that is, I think, the most important thing when it comes to, building community and really supporting the people that you believe in, which I think is
Yes.
beautiful. Yeah. And I mean, with Rent, obviously came the craziness that it became. It was a phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon. And you are credited with inventing Broadway's first rush ticket and lottery ticket policies. And as someone who has spent many hours waiting outside theaters for said tickets, um, bring us back to that moment when the idea came to you and what you were hoping to achieve with that.
When I produced Rent, I was 31 years old. I could barely afford a ticket to a Broadway musical. I mean, I was making some money by then, but not big money by any stretch. And my producing partner, Kevin McCollum, and I knew we needed to make sure people like us, young people,
Hmm.
go to the show. And that didn't just mean a student rush for like the NYU students. Granted, that's a great thing, but there's plenty of, as you kids are going to find out, once you graduate from NYU, you're still not going to be able to afford that ticket. So you don't want a student rush. You want a lottery for everybody
Yeah.
because the inability to pay is a equal opportunity problem. Right? There's old ladies who can't pay. There's people of all ages who can't pay. So we knew we need to make sure we have $20 tickets. And we said, and we'll pay for them with all the people who were at that time paying the highest price, which was $65. Hard to believe.
Yeah.
And and when then we thought, okay, so we're gonna have some $20 seats. And then we came up with this notion, what if we put them in the first two rows?
Hmm.
Then the enthusiasm of those people will start in the first two rows and just become a wave that goes all the way back to the last row of the mezzanine. And then we also thought, and if we um, make it a first come, first serve situation, and we are going to sell those seats every night at 6 o'clock, we'll get a line in front of the theater. And it's a very good visual to have a line in front of your theater because what does that say? Hit. It says people want to go. So actually, when we started, it was $20, first come, first serve, cash only. And a year into the run of Rent, we would have on Friday night, there would be three lines going simultaneously. The line for the Friday night at 8 show. Then there was a line for the Saturday at 2 show. Those kids were going to sleep over on 41st Street.
Yeah.
And then the line for the Saturday night at 8 show. We had three. I mean, there were so many people. And like all great things, it got a little bit cannibalized. Like some kids were kicking others off the line or saving spaces for their friends. And, it became a little bit of a Lord of the Flies situation.
Yeah.
So, and most important, we were afraid, I was afraid someone was going to get hurt. I was
Mm,
like, I cannot be responsible for a 16-year-old getting hurt by sleeping over in the middle of the night. So that led us to the 6 p.m. lottery. And for
hmm
the whole life of Rent, it was a live lottery where you put your name in the bucket and then they would pull them out. And when we started Hamilton, we were still doing the lottery. Eventually, we converted it to a digital lottery, which
Yeah.
was, which had advantages and disadvantages. It continued to make it more accessible, but by allowing people to do it digitally, it made the chance of winning even smaller because even more people were entering the lottery. But anyway, it started with Rent, and it's certainly of the top. It's one of the greatest contributions I think that we made to um, the health of Broadway musicals.
Yeah, and it allows the people who need to see these shows to go and see them, the people who will see themselves up on stage, the people who, see themselves in all the people in Rent, or like me who see themselves like see herself in Hamilton, where I think maybe three or four of the times that I saw Hamilton on tour was because my dad, who is a huge fan of Hamilton, he would be like, enter all the lotteries right now because we're like
Yeah.
2 hours from LA. So like if we won, we could drive down, and make it a
Oh,
night of seeing
wow.
Hamilton again. And it's like it's infectious. That was the first show I saw even back from the pandemic was to go to see Hamilton in LA. Um,
I have a question. Did you ever win the lottery?
yes, yes, no, at least a
Wow.
couple, two or three of the times I'm sure were from the lottery. And then there were other times that, we went just to go because it was our favorite show. But yeah, we did end up winning the lottery. Never on Broadway, because I think that maybe is the hardest one to win. But we did win it a couple times in some of the California tour stops. So it
That's
happened.
that's fabulous. Well, I'm glad you're here as a living testament to know people really do win.
Yeah.
And um and people have such wonderful stories about entering the lottery and how that all plays out. And that becomes part um of the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, every single time we visit New York, my dad will be like, get on your app, enter all of the days that we're there. Like,
I love it.
no joke, every single time. And I mean, when we go to New York too, most of the time we have no tickets bought for those that week, or we'll just go and see what we want to see. And with like the popularity of like the lotteries and rush tickets, like that's how we get to see so many varieties of shows is through those policies. And I mean, to talk to the person who pretty much began that is so surreal, I think, because it allowed me to really get to see a lot of different theater and just kind of build a base of like what I want to achieve, also as a performer or as a producer or like director, any of those things, to see different things done well is I think the most important thing that any young creative can do. And I mean, you made that possible. So so thank you. Um, and well, flipping through your book, a part about the 2008 Tony Awards caught my eye. Can you talk about, I think, what I'll call the photo and really how that came about?
Over the years of participating in the Tonys and winning Tonys originally for Rent and then most surprisingly Avenue Q. I came to always approach, first of all, the Tonys mean more than one thing. On the one hand, they're deeply important to us as musical theater lovers. As
hmm
I say in the book, it's our Super Bowl.
Yes.
It's what we all look forward to all year. It's what we get together with our friends on our couches in our family rooms and in our basements and in our teeny little college dorm apartments or dorm rooms to watch because we're so excited about what will win Best Musical.
hmm
I have loved the Tonys and watched it since 1978, since I was 13 years old. And when we won for Rent, which frankly, we kind of knew we were going to win for Rent. There was another good show that was nominated called Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk, but Ren had become just a supernova phenomenon.
Yeah.
Um, so that was so the first thing I was saying is Tonys are important to us spiritually because because we theater kids don't really care about the Super Bowl. We care about the Tonys.
Yes.
So we care about it. And then for me as a producer, the Tonys are a marketing tool,
Yes.
right? I'm a competitive guy. I want to win, but I want to sell tickets.
Hmm.
And we think through very carefully how can we sell the most amount of tickets, whether we win or not. We can't control if we're going to win that night. So, A, we can control how we market, how we do our advertising. We can control the number we do on the Tonys.
Hmm.
Um, and then we can control how our Tony appearances are distributed or relayed to the rest of the world. And by the time we had won for Avenue Q, which was a surprising and history-making win, I kind of knew how to maximize Tony exposure. And so as we were getting ready for the Tonys for 2008, which was, of course, our year of In the Heights, I was I was cautiously confident we would win. I knew we might not win. The New York Times said on Friday that the other show, Passing Strange, was going to win, which really scared me. But I still thought we would win. And I thought, so let's assume we win. What is going to be, excuse me, it's now the prickly pear season in New York, and the allergies are driving me crazy.
Yeah, really.
Um, um, if we win, what will be the visual that people see online and in newspapers all over America? And
Hmm.
that was when I said to Lynn, hey, what will happen if we win is Kevin and I are going to put you on our shoulders, and that'll be the photo. And
Hmm.
of course, Lynn had already won for best score, and he used the Puerto Rican flag, which gained enormous amounts of attention
Hmm.
because it was such a wonderful expression of love for Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
His home island, even though he's born in New York City. And and of lo and behold, because Kevin and I, and by the way, we had to stage that. Like I had to call Andy Blankenbuehler, the choreographer, and say, Andy, we want to lift Kevin. You need to stage this. So we had a rehearsal at Andy's studio on the Friday before the Tonys, where Seth Stewart and Chris Jackson and Lynn and Kevin and I and Andy and Tommy Kail, we all worked it out because lifting someone up on your shoulders very quickly is not an easy task.
No.
So what did we do? We staged it. And I knew that would be there will be one photo from the 2008 Tonys, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, the idea for that to even like occur to you, I think is just the testament to how, good of a producer you are, obviously, the Tonys to show for it. Of just like the fact that that can do so much for a show. It used to be like, oh, you win Best Musical, like you're gonna be a hit, but also not just relying on that, but being like, how can we really, really nail in this fact of like this will be the image that everyone will get to see and obviously help In the Heights with a great run and
And
such
it needed it. By
yeah.
the way, In the Heights was in baseball terms, if I can go to baseball for all of our theater kids on here, it was a double. Like we were doing nice business, but we
Hmm.
needed to win that Tony to keep running. We needed that Tony to sell more tickets and stay.
Yeah.
And um, and that image, of course, coupled with our fantastic performance of 96,000 on the Tony Awards that night,
Hmm.
um, catapulted us from doing very good business to doing great business.
Hmm.
And that's how we made the show into a hit.
Yeah, it was the home run that you needed. We're still using baseball.
Thank you. Exactly. No, that's right. We were on, we were a solid double and it made us a home run.
Yes, to use
I,
sports in in an interview about theater is crazy, but I think well used.
well, I figure everybody here only knows baseball through probably damn Yankees.
Most people I think at my school they refer to any sport as just sports ball. No specificity at all. Just oh, sports ball.
I've never heard that. Sports ball, like not
Yes.
baseball, football, sports ball. Okay, that's a new one, and I love it.
Yes, no, it's what all the BFA kids are saying nowadays.
Yeah, volleyball, sports ball.
And that's why I mean volleyball is like the one sport I understand, but I'm like I'll still call it all of it sports
Yeah,
ball.
I know.
It'll be okay. And you said in an interview, not in like your book, but I was just researching obviously to prepare, and I said I came across a quote that said, "The art that I respond to is always trying to reflect, interpret, celebrate, or criticize our culture." Where did that empathy and compassion stem from? And was it hard to get others to see what you saw in these shows?
Wow. First of all, I don't remember that quote, but but that makes it completely aligns with my values. So thank you for finding it. Um, when I first started to become familiar with Broadway musicals and not just Purim musicals, the first show that I had like a profound response to was A Chorus Line. And I saw it on tour at the Fisher Theater when I was 13.
Mhm.
And that was the first show I'd seen, and the first show anyone had seen in a while. That's not exactly true. It's the first show I had seen that was ostensibly a backstage musical about casting the chorus for a Broadway musical. But what it really was a musical about 15 people and who they are and where they come from and their hopes and their dreams and their disappointments and their challenges. The challenge of growing up gay, the
Mhm.
challenge of growing up and feeling like you don't fit in, right? The challenge of being a Black person in a white world.
Mhm.
Um, and the music had a contemporary quality.
Mhm.
And the clothes were like, dancer clothes. It was a completely contemporary musical about who we are today. And even though I wasn't necessarily a dancer, I could relate to those characters and their struggles and their dreams.
Mhm.
And of course, Chorus Line was, in my opinion, the best musical I'd ever seen. And you know what the next musical was that really had that contemporary quality?
What was it?
Rent. It
Yeah.
was Rent, the next musical that was about a group of people who we are today. It
Mhm.
was about real people who are struggling with um, artistic dreams, love, um, disease, AIDS, drugs. Today, today meaning 1996.
Mhm.
And they were singing in a musical vernacular that sounds like the music I might be hearing on the radio.
Mhm.
And um, and it looks like today.
Yeah.
And what I realized about me, and it's just me, is that that's what I like. I like contemporary musicals that deal with our struggles as human beings today. And which is not to say I don't appreciate or enjoy traditional musicals like 42nd Street.
Mhm.
That was never my thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the purveyor of a 42nd Street.
Mhm.
It's not my thing. I don't really, the music, the characters, the plot, not the tap dancing, not my thing.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, one could also, if you're really, digging through the history of musicals in my lifetime, if you look at Pippin, which is like a 1973 musical by, of course, Stephen Schwartz and Bob Fosse, what Bob Fosse did was that he used contemporary movement, contemporary language, contemporary music. Stephen Schwartz's score, his beautiful score to Pippin, which I just loved and listened to over and over and over as a kid, sounded like Carly Simon or James Taylor.
Hmm.
But so it was a very old story, right? It was about a king and his son in the Middle Ages, but he told it through he took it through a contemporary lens, and he made it sexy, and he made it of the present.
Hmm.
And I loved that. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, and what musical does that? Hamilton.
Yes, clearly. I think you always hear, about Hamilton. It's the America then told by America now. Really just who we are as a country and who we maybe want to be as a country, or what we're at least hoping for at this point in the climate for what's going on. But it's just that it touches people and it allows for Broadway not to just be for the few, but for the many, and allow. I think another quote that I found was like, our audience is wide now, we got to make it deep and just appeal to every single person, because I think that with these shows, anyone can see themselves in pretty much anyone. If you just look at the basic human beings that are on the stage and what they're saying, is there's someone to relate to in everything. And it doesn't matter if you don't look like them or you don't talk like them or whatever. It's just that they're human, and that's all that really matters. And so now we can talk about, I think we all want to know, how good does it feel to have been in the room where it happened?
Ashley, you asked me something earlier that I think is also reflected in this question, which is how did it feel to watch the development of Rent? And I think you're asking the same question here. How does it feel to have been in the room where Hamilton was developed, which is true. And there is a double-edged sword to that,
Hmm.
which is that when one is in the room where it happens, we just want to make it better. My collaborators, sometimes Lynn and Tommy they choke because they'll imitate me going, can we do better?
Yeah.
And that's, a question I've asked many times over the course of my career. And um, and the thrill is when we do make it better and it works. The thrill was when Jonathan, after three different workshops, two crises of confidence, and a lot of lurches forward and backward, finally made rent make sense so
Mm-hmm.
that every building block was a perfect block to go on top of the next.
Hmm.
Every building block now made sense. And I
Yeah.
remember when we did the first Sing read through, right after New Year's Day in 1996, saying to Jonathan, I was like, you did it. Like I like to say, the math added up,
Mm.
meaning
Yeah.
that Shakespearean five-act structure, right? That exposition, that major dramatic question, the rising action, the crisis, the point of no return, the conclusion. It all finally made sense. And I
Hmm.
remember saying to Jonathan, you did it. And he said, yep, I know. Here's, but here's the other side of the sword. I couldn't feel the elation inside because I knew how we cut the woman. I knew the magic trick because I
Hmm.
threw it. Like
Hmm.
once you know the magic trick, you can't. So I can't feel the same way about Rent and Hamilton as you might feel in the
Hmm.
same way, but I have those feelings for A Chorus Line and Dreamgirls and Evita
Yeah. No, I
because
can.
those were my shows that I loved, and Sweeney Todd, which in a great late in life action, I got to produce as a revival, on Broadway 2 years ago with the great Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford,
Yeah.
with my friend director Thomas Kail. But when we are the purveyors of the magic trick and we know how to cut the woman in half, we can't feel the same thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, I love magic shows. And I helped present a magic show by a great magician from London called Darren Brown a few years ago. And I said, I'll help present this on Broadway, Darren, but I'm only going to see the show once because I don't ever want to know how the magic trick is done.
Hmm.
I don't want to, don't tell me anything because it's the only time in life I think I believe in God because I'm an atheist, but I love magic.
Yeah.
I want to believe in magic. It was magic.
I guess
And that's what we're doing. And that's
yeah.
what we're doing. We are always trying to make a new magic trick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally see that.
So that the audience A is thrilled and B is like, I don't know how they did that.
I have to say, something that's coming to mind is my first time seeing Little Shop of Horrors,
Ah,
seeing like the plant and everything. And I only saw this recent revival. That's like maybe the I've only seen it like two different productions. That's like the main one I've seen a bunch of times. But after like getting to know all the puppeteers and meeting them and becoming friends and like asking them pretty much how it works, like it becomes different because then you see it in a new way. That's like the only thing I can think of right now. That kind of is what you're explaining is like when you look at it in a different way and you kind of know what's going on, it doesn't seem quite as magical as maybe it would seem from the outside, or if you're just seeing something from for the first time.
yeah.
Which is so fascinating. I don't know if I really thought about that too much in the past, but definitely.
Well, that's why I think it's not, I don't want to invite people backstage before a show or anything like that because don't see the magic. Be out front so you can suspend your disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
The no, the suspension of disbelief is integral to the pleasure of the experience.
Hmm.
Wow. I never said that like that before, but I think it's true.
I think that's a good quote. I think maybe that can be one, you know, for a while. And it's just the again, like when you know you go in the theater and the lights get dark and you're in the world for maybe I mean now a lot of shows are 90 minutes, but 2.5 hours or whatever. It's just that's the only world that you're really seeing and you just get transported somewhere. And so when you do know what's going on behind, I think it gets a little muddy and harder to experience it as like almost childlike. I mean, your book is called Theater Kid. I think like whenever we go see a Broadway show, it's the theater kid that comes out in us that is sitting there. Even if you're, you know, 20, 30, 40, 50, it doesn't matter. It's just the person inside you that was always there is the one experiencing it. So I think that's I mean, everyone wants to heal their inner child. So that's just the most beautiful thing I think you could give anybody. And I want to know, obviously, you've seen Hamilton a lot of times. So how do you know how many times, maybe not just like involving like all rehearsals, but do you know how many times you've actually seen it and like how many countries? Because it's been everywhere at this point. So
Yes, well, I have, believe it or not, we've been in countries like the Philippines, Singapore, and the UAE that I didn't even get to. But of
Mm,
course, I've seen it in I've seen it in Edinburgh. I've seen it in Manchester. I've seen it in London. I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it in Melbourne. I've seen it in Sydney. And of course, in so many cities across America. I don't know. Have I seen it 50 times? Have I seen it 100 times?
mm.
If you just said, well, we've already done 8 companies. I've probably seen each company 4 or 5. I've certainly seen Hamilton, plus the rehearsals, the workshops. It's well over 100 times, but I'm better off not counting.
You know what? I think that's okay too. I think my number is 10 right now.
Oh,
But you
that's a
know,
lot. I don't know if I've ever, I saw Evita several times when I was young, but I only saw it one, two, three. I saw it about 5 times. I
okay.
saw the chorus line about 5 times. I don't think I ever saw anything 10 times. But you know what I wanted to say to you? So when I sit down in Hamilton, I have to ask, how are you going to do it? And I always say, listen.
Mm,
So when it goes dun, 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 and Burr comes out, I just want to listen
mhm,
and see where he takes me.
mhm.
Where will they take me tonight?
Yeah, I think it's maybe the thing of like when actors have to do a show 8 times a week, it's like that for you where you've seen this countless times, and to make it new for yourself each time is a challenge, but one that obviously is worth it because it's such a beautiful show. But it's like especially for me, even to like see it only 10 times, I feel like, I at one point I was like, "Oh my God, I've seen this so many times. I feel like I've seen so many little details," and I just started watching different people on stage that maybe weren't singing and stuff like that. Where you make it new for yourself to make it more fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I mean, I think I love that about Hamilton too, is you can watch it a million times and still see new things all the time. Um,
Yeah.
and just it's a new experience whenever you step into that theater, which is incredible. I mean, the most recent time I saw it was in London. And I mean, even that, like, I was gonna ask too, like, how have the audience experience, like, how have the audience reactions not only changed throughout where you're doing it, but when you're doing it?
Yes. Well, the when is more interesting to me than the where, because I have to tell you, if I really think about the reactions from New York to Atlanta to Seattle to Los Angeles to London to Edinburgh to Melbourne, the reactions tend to be very similarly joyous, raucous, and enthusiastic everywhere. But the when is interesting. And
Yeah.
by that, what I will explain is that, after the election of 2016, in which the cast was just gutted by the loss by Hillary Clinton,
Hmm.
gutted by the notion that a uh, man who had expressed so many racist, misogynistic, cruel impulses,
Hmm.
but had become president. Um, what we found after that election was people needed Hamilton even more. And I think the same is true today,
Yeah.
after he won again. I think that now people need Hamilton because Hamilton is a beacon.
Hmm.
Hamilton is an expression of our greatest values and our greatest impulses as Americans, because here is a show that can handle, that can express dreams, politics, conflict, fair and free elections,
Hmm.
the peaceful transfer of power,
Hmm.
and the value that we all share in democracy, whether one is Alexander Hamilton or his chief rival, not necessarily Aaron Burr, but even Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I think we need Hamilton because Hamilton is an expression of who we can be, who we really are. And I
Hmm.
think we need that right now because Hamilton is who we are,
Yeah.
not what's going on in the White House.
Yes, I fully 100% agree. It couldn't be more relevant. And I think this happens with so many shows is they go on for, decades or whatever, and then it comes back where it's like, oh, this is just as relevant as it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. We're still dealing with the same things. It's like we need to maybe need to learn a little better to, really
Yeah.
listen to our history and know not to repeat it. There's a show behind, like the poster behind me, Here Lies Love. That was a whole thing of like, I don't know if you were aware of the show, but it was just like we don't want to repeat this, but again, we're seeing things happen in the Philippines, and it's so heartbreaking when it's like, why don't we learn and why don't we listen? And so it's just to see a beacon like Hamilton, like you said, is just, it's so powerful what it can do. And the fact that people still 10 years later are, it's still packed houses all like everywhere. The fact that this story is still so urgently told is important. And just the fact that we need to listen like you do whenever you go and see the show. We just really need to listen.
Yes. And I want to tell you, I'm a fan of Here Lies Love. And I saw its very first. I saw, anyway, I was there at the very beginning. I listened to it before David Byrne actually did a full musical. And then I saw it downtown and then I saw it uptown and always enjoyed it.
Yes, no, it's such a beautiful show. That's another show I've seen a million times, but just, it's just these historical shows are always very poignant, I think, in our society. And in your book, you have what you describe as your proudest moment as a producer. You responded to a call that a certain person wanted to attend the show, and you decided to do something and say something that most people would be petrifying of even having to address. Can you speak about that time and just what was going through your mind?
Um, as I said to you earlier, the day after Trump won the election in 16, our cast was gutted. And it was a Wednesday, and we had to go on and do a matinee. And we had a meeting before that performance. And I heard people say, I don't feel safe as a Mexican American. I heard people say, I don't feel safe as a gay man. I heard Anthony Ramos say, well, now we know we have to fight back
Mhm.
because he won and he doesn't like us, and we're going to fight back. Um, and only 9 days later, while we're still trying to adjust to this reality that he won, we received a call that Vice President-elect Mike Pence wanted to go to the show on that Friday night.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, I don't even know if the cast would go on stage and perform. Why? Like, and I was like, we're going through so much, really. But you can't say no, but I also knew this was my loophole. I was like, of course we're gonna have to let him, but he was asking for special treatment in that he wanted tickets the same day, which meant he wanted house seats. A regular person wouldn't be able to get tickets the same day. He's gonna need extra seats for his security. And I thought, well, if he wants special treatment, we deserve to be able to give him special treatment. So we need to address our concerns.
Mhm.
And then the question was, should we? And so I wrote a speech, and then I shared that speech and rewrote it with Lin-Manuel and his dad, Luis, and Tommy Kell. Lynn was in London making Mary Poppins, and Tommy and I got over to that theater and we met with the cast and we asked Brandon Victor Dixon, the wonderful actor who was playing Aaron Burr, if he would read the speech. And
Mhm.
he was gung ho, and the company was gung ho. And that night, after Mike Pence, after the performance came down, Mike started to leave, but Brandon said, "We have a special guest in the audience tonight, Vice President-elect Mike Pence." Some people cheered, some people booed. And, Brandon gave this very respectful speech saying, we are afraid you will not represent us in our inalienable rights as
Mhm.
Black people, brown people, gay people, all people. And we did it. And of course, it was all over the news. And then Trump started tweeting about it. So it went all over the world.
Mhm.
And the reason I say I'm proud is because it was only 10 days after the election, and I think it was one of the first peaceful protests after that election of this new administration. And of course, everything we were worried about was came true.
Mhm.
He did not represent all of us. And
Yeah.
everything we were worried about is still is worse.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I was proud of that moment as a father, as a citizen, as a gay man, as a Jew, um, and as a producer.
Mhm. No, I was, looking through the book, just like finding little bits and pieces here and there of just different experiences. And I came across that and it like all the things came flooding back. I was like, oh my God, yeah, that's what happened all the way back then. Like when that really did.
Yeah, folks, you should go online and find that speech because when you watch that on YouTube, it's a powerful moment when Brandon addressed him, and
Yeah.
it's worth watching.
Yeah. No, I rewatched it a couple times last night, just being like, oh my God, it's almost eerie and kind of just strange feeling after, what happened last November and
Yeah,
knowing,
can you believe we're here again? Are we really here again?
I don't
What,
know.
what, and I think many people are going to live to deeply regret this decision they made to vote for this monster. He's a monster.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just it's such a difficult, I think, thing to process, and just to even address that it's happened. History repeats itself, we keep saying. It's just, we really, hopefully, really need to learn from it this time. I'm praying, hoping and praying, and just, and I mean, I think Hamilton again is still just that beacon of like, oh, that's what we're trying to be, that's who we should be, and what we can be, which I think we need a little reminder of.
And of course, then we had to um, once again wade into these political waters when um, Trump took over the Kennedy Center in February and um, polarized it with all Republicans. He made it a partisan organization when he fired every single Democratic member of the board, fired the president and CEO, installed one of his political hacks, and made himself chairman of the board. And after he politicized the Kennedy Center and made it into a partisan arm of his agenda, we had to decide what to do because we were supposed to go back to the Kennedy Center in March and April of 2026. And once again, we made the decision to cancel and say, if this has become a politicized organization, we are not going to give you our business. And we canceled and we put out an article explaining why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think it was for Hamilton to be leading, I guess, the charge of kind of just taking control and standing up for what you all believe in. I think was so inspiring to for so many people to see, because Hamilton is obviously inherently political, but I believe that it can be for everyone. And even I remember reading
Well,
about like,
Hamilton is it is not a partisan musical. It manifests political conflict. Of course, the parties back then are not the same, but it manifests all those political conflicts. And from our earliest days, we had Republicans enjoying Hamilton every bit as much as Democrats. It was everybody's musical.
yeah. No, yeah, like you said, everybody's musical. It's for everyone and, for America, and the love that you feel for America too, as
Yeah,
I
we
think.
didn't have a Republican Party or exactly a Democratic Party back then, but both Democrats and Republicans claim Hamilton as a guy who embodies their values. And in many ways, he embodies values that Republicans had and Democrats. We were for everybody of every political persuasion. We
Mhm.
are for everybody of every political persuasion.
Yeah, and I think, people are so nuanced. You can't just be fully on one side or the other, and it's just to accept that we all do have different thoughts and experiences and lives, and accept each other for that instead of, maybe turning against each other, which I think is maybe the empathy that we need the most in the world right now. So
Yeah.
thank you, and for Hamilton for just really being that pillar of, strength for I think our community in this very difficult time. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. And you're welcome.
Yes. And with your book and all the stories and all the things that, I mean, I know I can't wait to finally dive in and really read the whole thing. What do you hope will resonate with the readers of your book?
You can do it.
Mhm. Yeah. I think, from chatting with you just today, I think it's so clear how much of a cheerleader you are for just everybody, and just wanting people to really succeed and help out, friends and people who just need that extra push of like, you can do it.
Yeah. And the it is so many things.
Yeah.
You can realize your dreams. You can find a satisfying relationship. You can make a new group of friends. You can be an artist. You can be a doctor. You can come out of the closet. I mean, I've already said that. You can be a performer. You can be a producer. You can do it. Now the question is how?
Mm-hmm.
Question is get to work.
Yeah. No.
Get to work.
Yeah, no, I mean, luck is obviously the opportunity when that meets hard work. So you just
Correct.
gotta go into it head first and just keep
Yeah.
going, which I feel like I'm trying to do every single day, and I hope is, gonna pay off someday, and I know it will.
And be open to refashioning it. It's not, how what you think you're going to do may not be what you do, but you have to be flexible enough and pragmatic enough to say, "Oh, I thought I was going here, but I'm going to veer a little bit and go here instead."
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd say just in my personal life how dreams can change so much. Never thought I'd be a performer until Hamilton, and then it kind of changed everything. So it's like, things can always change. And as long as you're following your passions, I think that's just the most important thing is making sure that, you yourself are happy. And to finish this out, a question I had was that you've produced so many original musicals on Broadway that became successful, groundbreaking hits, cultural phenomenons, and with so many shows right now, either relying on existing IP to ensure their success. What is your vision for the future of Broadway?
Well, I want to address what you just said. Existing IP does not ensure success.
Hmm.
Though, first of all, Oklahoma was existing IP because it's based upon a play called Green Grow the Lilacs, which was an unsuccessful play,
Hmm.
right? So existing IP is in no way new. Showboat is based on a novel by
Yeah,
Anne Harper called Showboat. Um, Existing IP is great. Um, Hamilton is existing IP.
true.
Avenue Q in the Heights and Rent are not. Well, and Rent is sort of existing IP and sort of not.
Yeah.
Um, um, and one's possibility of success is no greater or less than by using existing IP, whether that, and of course, we've seen many shows adapted from movies, and some of them have been great, whether that was The Band's Visit or that was Once, or The Producers, we've had many of those, and we've had many that didn't work. And
Hmm.
um, so, existing IP is no insurance policy against failure.
Hmm.
And making a great musical is about one of the hardest artistic pursuits one can engage in.
Yeah.
And and we all enter, even if we've made several new musicals, in some strange way, we come up to bat as if we're amateurs again. It's like, oh my God, how do you do this?
Yeah.
And you do it with curiosity and passion
Hmm.
and rigor and discipline.
Hmm.
But having said that, we try and we don't always succeed.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who had to, for an assignment, had to try and write an original song, I don't even know where to start. It was so hard.
Good,
I had to
good.
ask for some help, but it's just, the thing we do is so difficult, and to get it right is so, I think the opportunity to get it right is so few and far between where it really works. Like something like Hamilton, Rent, In the Heights, Avenue Q. When you get it right, it's like lightning, but when you don't, it's just really difficult. But I think just all the shows that you've produced have been such visions for just really what Broadway can be and what it should be is, for the many and not just the few, and representing the people who should be seeing the shows and everyone from the community, not limiting it to just people with money or people who are, more affluent. And just really having that outreach has been just, I think, changed the history of Broadway, changed everything about Broadway, and allowing new people in. And so, Jeffrey, it's been so nice just getting to chat with you. Thank you so much. This has just been truly an honor. And is there anything else that you'd like to say today?
No, you've been a terrific conversationalist, and I've enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you so much. And to everyone who listening, please make sure to get your copy of Theater Kid coming out on, I believe, May 6th.
May 6th.
Yes, so please
The
make
only
sure
thing they
to
should know is, of course, the audiobook comes out May 6th, and they're, as we've already publicized, 15 of the greatest Broadway musical theater actors have joined me to play all the different Broadway characters in the book.
that
And
is
so the audiobook's going to be a lot of fun.
I'll definitely have to check that out once it comes out. That sounds just the most exciting. And I believe I've been seeing things that you're doing like a book tour as well and having different conversations. Is that true? Or is
Yeah,
that
they should go see, find me, find me at Jay Seller in Instagram. We're doing several dates in New York City. We're going to Detroit, my hometown. We're going to Chicago. We're going to Washington. And then we're going to add a few more cities again in a couple weeks.
yeah, incredible. Can't wait to, dive into your memoir. Like this is just going to be such a beautiful experience and I think it's going to touch a lot of lives. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for, this great conversation and I hope everyone has an incredible day. Thank you so much, Jeffrey. You've been listening to Broadway Corner with Ashley Haw. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.